to everyone to this Destinations that we are going to talk about Marie Curie. So it's a great pleasure to have with us David Marçal and the others. So I'm not going to talk much more because we are late, 4 minutes. So Clara, please go ahead with all the information about this destination.
This is all Natasha. Go ahead, Natasha.
Yes, Natasha.
Hello, everybody. So welcome to our Destinations. You all already know the program. So first we will have with us David Marçal explaining what is new in the Marie Curie actions, specifically in the postdoctoral fellowships this year. So this event is aimed at everybody that wants to know more about the postdoctoral fellowships, and especially for the ones of you that want to apply at the University of Coimbra this year. At any of the research centers of the University of Coimbra. So please, David, you have the word now.
Thank you. So I'll be giving you an overview of this Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowships and highlight some of the novelties in Horizon Europe. There are some novelties, although it is more or less in line with the previous Horizon 2020 program. So the postdoctoral fellowships are one of Marie Curie actions. So all of these instruments have two main ideas. One is mobility, international, intersectoral, which means between academic and non-academic sector, and interdisciplinarity. So, so it is It is based on three dimensions of mobility, and it has a strong emphasis on training, on career development, and on improving the employment perspectives of fellows that are funded by Marie Curie actions. So I'll just very briefly have an overview of the instruments. So they are basically the same as in Horizon 2020. Now some of them have different names. For instance, doctoral networks used to be ITNs, International Training Networks. Postdoctoral fellowships are now postdoctoral fellowships, who are the individual fellowships. Staff exchange was RISE. Now it's only staff exchange. Co-fund, it's still co-fund, and the Researchers' Night is now MSCA and Citizens. I'll be talking today about postdoctoral fellowships. So these are the calls, the upcoming calls. So the postdoctoral fellowships will be open, are expected to open on the 27th of May. At the same time as the doctoral networks, and this is the rest of the calendar for 2021. So we have staff exchange on October, and also co-fund, and we have also the MSCA in Citizens in June, which actually it is a call for 2 years, 2021 and 2022. So these postdoctoral fellowships are, as the name very clearly states, are postdoctoral contracts for researchers in all scientific fields. One of the novelties in this program is that it includes now the Euratom areas, and there are basically two types of postdoctoral fellowships, which were already the two types that were in Horizon 2020. So there are the European postdoctoral fellowships for anyone coming to Europe from any country in the world or moving within Europe. There is one novelty as well here. There are no separate panels in the postdoctoral fellowships now. What does this mean? This means that the panels are only based on disciplines. So you don't have a different panels for different kinds of fellowships. So, and then you have global postdoctoral fellowships, which is for researchers that want to go outside an European Union member state or Horizon Europe associated country, and then return for a period of 1 year to one European member states. But I'll go into detail a little bit more in the upcoming slides. And there are also these ERA fellowships, the European Research Area fellowships, which are from the horizontal pillar widening, which will be aligned with the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships. So you can apply if you are applying from an institution with an institution in a widening country, which is the case of Portugal. You can apply both to the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships and the ERA fellowships. And you have therefore more chances of being funded. So in all of the MSCA instruments, are always the organizations that apply that apply. So in the case of postdoctoral fellowships, it is a single organization that applies. And then, but already, of course, identifying the recruited researcher. So there is also a novelty here. So the researchers have to be in the possession of the PhD at the call deadline. And there is also another novelty, which is a limit of 8 years of scientific age after the PhD at the call deadline. So there are a few exceptions to this limit, which are such as career breaks, work outside research outside Europe for reintegrating researchers. So the details about these exceptions are still being fine-tuned, as the Horizon Europe is not still yet approved, there are not the more detailed documents, such as the guide for applicants, are not still yet available. So we will have to see in the final versions of these documents exactly the fine-tuning of these exceptions. Some things are still on the table if the details are still being fine-tuned. And of course, there is the mobility rule, so which is not a novelty. So you cannot have resided or have your main activity in the country of the beneficiary for more than 12 months in the last 3 years before the call deadline. As I said, there are also, Euratom is a research and training program parallel to the complementary to the Horizon Europe, and so there are specific eligibility criteria to these areas. Sorry. So about the fellowships, so the European fellowships will have 20 to 24 months, and the global fellowships 24 to 36 months. With a 12 months mandatory return phase in Europe. So the fellows will go outside Europe for 12 to 24 months, and then they will have a mandatory 12 months phase in Europe. So another novelty is that you can have secondments during the duration of your fellowship, up to one third of the duration. And the novelty is this secondments can be worldwide. There is also an additional period of 6 months that you can use if you have a placement in a non-academic European organization at the end of our fellowships, which is applicable to both the European and the global fellowships. So. This is again the dates of the calls, which will open on 27 May this year. There is also a resubmission restriction applying from 2002 on for applications receiving a score below 70%. These are the components of the fellowship. So there is the contributions for the recruited researchers, the living allowance as a country correction coefficient determined by Eurostat to account for the different standard of living in the different countries. And there is also some institutional unit contributions for the institutions that host the researcher, for costs covering training, networking, and also management. So as in all Marie Curie instruments, there are 3 evaluation criteria: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of implementation. So in excellence, you have also, besides the project research and innovation objectives and the methodology, it's also evaluated the quality of the supervision, training, and the two-way transfer of knowledge, as well as the appropriateness of the researcher's professional experience. As for impact, one very important aspect of Marie Curie actions is this possibility to enhance the career perspectives and employability, which is one very important impact that is assessed during the evaluation. Also, of course, the outcomes and also the expected scientific, social, and economic impacts, and of course the quality of the work plan, and of course the capacity of the host organization and participating organizations to host the fellow. So all calls are available in the funding and tenders portal within the European Commission website. So you just have to search for Marie Curie Skłodowska-Curie actions. There are a lot of calls. At the moment, you will not find the postdoctoral fellowship call because it is not yet open. So it will be there when it will be open. And at the moment, as I said, there is not still a lot of documentation available, but when the call opens, you will have a lot of guidance documents that you can use, such as the guide for applicants, the proposal templates, and other resources that you can use. As you have already noticed, there is a strong emphasis on the participation of non-academic entities within this consortia, or in this case, it's not a consortia because it's only a single legal entity that applies, but you can have a placement in the non-academic sector at the end of the fellowship, or you can even apply to be hosted in the non-academic institution. So what is, sometimes people ask what is a non-academic sector? It's basically anything that is not the academic sector. Another novelty, it's also the need, the gender equality plans that from 2022 on, you have to have an approved gender equality plan in order to sign the grant agreements. But at the moment, and for the 2021 call, you don't need, there is a grace period, and you don't need to have the gender equality plan as yet to sign the grant agreements from the 2021 calls. One important it's also important to mention, as this is a novelty for all Horizon Europe, the gender equality plan is not evaluated in the scope of the proposal. You have to have it as a condition to sign the grant agreement, and that's what will be needed in the future. But anyhow, that is up for the institution to ensure that the researcher or anyone submitting the application only has to click the box if it has the gender equality plan or no, and there is no consequence for not having, and it will not now, not in the future, because actually it is only needed for the grant agreement. So I'll end here. This is our contacts from the NCPs from Pillar 1 in FCT, and thank you.
Thank you very much for the overview and for the details of what is coming next. So any questions that you may have towards the presentation of David Marçal, you can begin putting them into the chat box, and then after all the speakers, we will give you the word and we will answer your questions, okay? So I would now follow with the presentation by Mette Skrastad from Yellow Research that is going to tell us much more about how to convince the reviewers to fund your proposal. Please, Mette, welcome. We are not hearing you yet.
There it is. Now I hope that you can hear me.
Perfect.
So I have a very short presentation, and when I'm going through the slides, you will understand why. Because it's not about informing you, but it's about letting you think. Because somehow you need to convince these reviewers to fund your dream of becoming an independent researcher. And as said, there are not so many panels. The panels are disciplinary. And if I counted correctly, there are about 7 panels, and they're quite broad. And when they are quite broad, you also need to start to think about how are you going to inform these panel members about your research. There will be some panel members will be selected based on the keywords that are behind their name, and they also selected your proposal based on the abstract, so they know a little bit more about the kind of research you do, but they need to understand it in such a way that they can discuss your project proposal. And that takes time to get it on paper in the right way, but also to think through everything. So this is about thinking through how can you convince the reviewers of funding your project. And what you need to think through is what has been said already, is that they're going to assess some different parts. And what I do is I'm cross-cutting the criteria of Marie Curie action. They are assessing your project's idea, and they're looking at, is it truly excellent? And what you need to realize is that most project proposals on the stack of proposals have good ideas, really very, very good ideas. But the trick is to show them that it's not only a good idea, but that it will in the end also lead to results and an impact. So you need to correlate the excellence idea with the impact. And this is about intriguing the reader, showing that when it comes to your ideas, you have truly an ambition. And the ambition is going in a transfer of knowledge in both directions, from you to the host organization, and from the host organization to the applicant. So it's really you two together, and maybe also with the secondments. And then, as said, the dimension of the 3 I's. So the interdisciplinarity, intersectoral, and international. Well, you will tick off the international. That's not a problem, because you're going to move from one country to another country, or you're already in Portugal, but still within the 12 months before the deadline, so you can apply within Portugal with Coimbra. But when it comes to interdisciplinary and intersectoral, you need to think through how can you make that idea and the impact major by crossing the boundaries of disciplines. You have already an education and training. You are already known for some reasons when it comes to disciplinary knowledge. And you would like to tell that the host organization is matching what you need for your project. That's one thing. But you also would like to look at who could be the best host institute. And when you can have secondments, then Coimbra doesn't have to be perfect 100%, because you can have the secondments filling in the weakness of you and the host organization. And this is what you need to start to think about. What are the strong points and the weak points of you, the host organization, and maybe the secondments? That will ensure that when it comes to your idea, that you will be able to generate the impact on research, the impact on your career, but also on adjacent societal impacts when it comes to society or industry or even the clinic. And that's about inspiring. It must be that when the review is reading your proposal, they're just like, oh, that's great. I should have been coming up with that idea. Or that's great. I should have been hosting that project proposal. It's about, if you start to read, you have the feeling, oh, wow, I'm going to enjoy reading the proposal. Most proposals are not enjoyable to read, I can tell you. And then you need also to convince them. And that's about the soundness of the methodology. But the soundness of the methodology is not only when it comes to your skills and what you've been trained, but also transfer of knowledge. And then again, the 3 I's and also the preliminary data. In most cases, you would like to have preliminary data showing that when it comes to what you are proposing to the reader is doable and feasible to some extent. That's not necessary when you're going in for theoretical. When you're going in for theoretical research, then you need to come up with arguments based on theory. But when you're going in for empirical or experimental research or observational research, you would like to show some prelim results to show that this can be done. So what you need to do is you need to develop the ideas on which you're basing your proposed research. That's about putting your ideas on paper. It's not about writing already a proposal, but some keywords or some sentences. And you also need to make a SWOT analysis, the strength, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Why? Because the reviewers will do that. They will also make a SWOT analysis. And if they then discover that there are too many weaknesses and you have not been pinpointing them or you have not been covering them, then you're out, even though there might be 1 or 2 strong points there. But you also would like to show that there is an opportunity. If they give you the funding, you will accelerate, not only when it comes to research, but also your career and also positioning yourself. And then not only is it about making a SWOT analysis, but it's also about talking. What's very, very important in the project development phase is to talk. Talk to anybody. Not to the people who might be a threat and stealing your ideas. You have to trust them. Not talking to the host organization, to your future supervisor, or I should say team leader, where you're going to be embedded. But it's also about talking to other people and maybe also to friends and colleagues. And then you would like to listen to what they're saying. Because if you start to talk, you would like to see how are they perceiving what you're saying and what kind of wording are they using. Because in most cases, they are simplifying things. And because they're simplifying things, they might give you some wording to put your ideas on paper. And then you need to agree together. You need to agree with the host organization, the supervisor, you, and maybe also the secondments to see, is this what you would like to go to do? And then you need to clarify exactly what are your needs. It's really about the needs of research, but moreover, it's about you, about what is the potential for your career and positioning and your networking. What boost will the research give to your career? And will you be able to become truly independent? And that's what I see what the reviewers are doing a lot in MarieCurie, is that they are not only assessing, is this nice research, but what is the benefit for your career? And then when it comes to soundness, soundness is something that it's something about explaining to the panel, to the ones who are reading your proposal, but also to the rest of the panel. It's about making choices and then explaining the core elements and the core methodologies and why you're opting for that, including, of course, the transfer of knowledge and the 3I dimension. And making choices and explain the core, that's about thinking through what are the core elements and core methodologies that you need to explain in such a way that if the reviewer is reading it, they start to nod and they say, yes, that's how it should be done. When you're looking at the panel, it's chemistry, physics, mathematics, life sciences, humanities, social sciences. It's very, very broad, or engineering. And the panels are not full experts in what you're proposing. So you really need to think through how are you going to explain your project to the panel in such a way that they start to understand what you're proposing. And if they start to understand what you're proposing, then they're able to discuss your project proposal together, but also the one who is the leader of the discussion can then also bring it forward to the panel and tell why your project should be selected for funding. So what you need to do when you are developing your project is to have a clear project structure with goals in the context of the current knowledge. What do we know? What is published? What are in the open archives? But also in the context of the ongoing research across the whole world. You need to define milestones and also think through what will be the timing of the activities and what you're going to do, but also identify risks and alternative plans. You need to think through what could be expected results. What will we learn? And what will be your deliverables when it comes to providing publications? And you need to think through what will be your writing style. It has to be logical, informative, and you need to make clear to the reader how and why. What you will notice is that when you draft the first draft, is that it's written for you. And then you need to think through how you're going to draft it for the panel. You are a postdoctoral fellow. You have to take the lead. You need to co-develop and co-write proposal and discuss the drafts with the host organization. Of course, the host organization will also write some parts, but you're going to make sure that you take the lead. And what you need to remember is that if you know how to draft proposal, I know it's going to be a struggle, but if you know how to do it, because you've been thinking through and discussing through the whole proposal, then you can show enthusiasm. And the enthusiasm is important because if you are enthusiastic, then you can convince the reader this is something that should be funded, even though there are other exciting proposals on the stack. And by that, I thank you and wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. This was really food for thought. And right now we have a 5-minute break in order for everybody to sit with the information, think about your questions, think about the new information that David told us about the upcoming program, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. All right, and if we have all already grabbed our cup of coffee and stretched our legs, then we will go into the next part of our session, which now is with Luísa Dias Pereira, a former Marie Curie Fellow. She was awarded a fellowship in 2017 and will tell us a little bit about how to be a fellow, how was her experience and the project. Please, Luísa, welcome and thank you for being here.
Hello. So I'll start sharing my screen. I hope you are all now looking at my screen, right?
Yes, right.
I always have to ask this because with Zoom, I'm not so good at it. So good afternoon, everyone. So for those who do not know me, I'm Luísa Dias Pereira. I'm now working at R&D unit at the University of Coimbra. I was out for a couple of years as a Marie Curie Fellow. And then I came back, and nowadays I'm in Coimbra. It doesn't mean I'm going to stay here forever, but I might stay for the next couple of years. So mobility is part of a researcher's life nowadays. So my project, or our project, it's better to, though it's individual, I would call it our, because it gave us a lot of work. So I see it as my project and those of the Department of Architecture of the University of Ferrara in Italy. It was called HELLO, and this standard for Heritage Energy Living Lab on Site. Just a brief introduction to explain you who I am, and maybe to explain a little bit why, I don't know, also the success of the proposal. So I initially graduated as an architect at the Faculty of Architecture in Oporto, in Portugal. Then a couple of years later, I performed a master in energy for sustainability at the University of Coimbra. And in 2016, I concluded my PhD that was done within the MIT Portugal program in sustainable energy systems, also at the University of Coimbra. Before I ended my PhD, I had already heard about the Marie Curie programs, but I didn't know much about it. So the first thing that everybody will probably tell you is that it is very, very difficult to get a scholarship. You should not count on that. So my experience showed me the opposite. So the first thing I would like to tell you is that you should try. The no is certain if you don't try. If you try, you might get an yes. This is the first thing. The second thing is that it happened to me that I couldn't get the scholarship from the FCT, so the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology. And okay, it was a different proposal, what I did for the European Commission and for the Marie Curie program, but I got it. So, you know, you always have to play with the odds and always with the luck, I would say. So after I moved to Italy, so the mobility, and it has been said, it is part of this program, and I was there from October 2018 until September last year at the Department of Architecture. So just to give you a brief introduction, I started as an architect. I've been working with engineers, and then in the proposal, the host institution, though it was the University of Ferrara, it was in particular the Department of Architecture, and then a research center at this department. So I went back, I would say, to my roots, but not to what I was doing as a PhD. So there was a difference in between what I proposed in my postdoc. It was not a continuity of what I was doing or what I've done as a PhD candidate. In terms of the project itself, just to give you a highlight, because I didn't know this when I applied, it's just, I don't know, but I believe that our audience are probably or PhD candidates or postdocs in the beginning of their career. So there is the web page that is Cordis, the European web page, where you can find all the projects that are being developed at an European level, and in some other projects of the past. And you can search for the funding programs. And for instance, you can search there for all the Marie Curie projects that have been funded so far. And you can learn a little bit from the abstracts, for instance, and from the information on what is the type of approach and the, I would say, the wording and the type of speech you use. For instance, what you can see in this image is the abstract of our project. Just, it's not a very important thing, but it was in our case because we proposed something that was relatively radical back, I believe, back then, because we decided to propose something that was half of the project was research and half of it was dissemination. So we had a very strong dissemination and communication plan. We had our website, and you can search for our social pages also. And this is something that it might not be fundamental, but it is also important how you communicate the results and what you are doing to the community, and to which community, to the research community, to the society, to your peers. It will depend a lot on the on your public audience. So another thing, just a curiosity, back then when I participated, or when we submitted our proposal, we used to do it at the participant portal. It doesn't exist no longer. It has been said today and been talked about in the funding and tenders portal. And the first thing that I would suggest is that you would go there and that you get familiarized with the platform. So it was said by David Marçal that it is the host institution that somehow conducts the proposal. But for instance, in my case, I was the one always leading with the portal. So I submitted the entire proposal. It depends on the host institution. I don't know exactly about the support that the University of Coimbra might give you on this, but I think that you could get familiarized with the platform and start understanding what is requested, even because if you get funded, then all your communications with the European Commission will be through this portal. So going to what probably interests you the most. I don't know how much it has changed or not, but mainly the proposal is made, I would say, of two main parts. So the part A is mainly administrative, and I filled it absolutely online. So that's why I said that as soon as it is open, for instance, do register an application to start knowing what you have, what is the kind of information that you have to fill in. It's not the most difficult part, but it is important that you get familiar with it to know exactly what you have to choose. Like, for instance, what is the area that you are going to apply, the panel, all these things. And then, most importantly, the second part, that in my case, I mean, by the call of 2017, it was composed of part B1 and B2, and the part B1 was the fundamental one. So I don't know if it stands exactly like this, but it was. And I would say that this is probably the most difficult part for you. I mean, not to synthesize your CV, but you'll probably have a maximum of pages to present yourself, but especially the proposal itself, and you have 10 pages for this. These 10 pages are not necessarily 10 pages about the proposal, because, for instance, your supervisor will be also assessed, and there will be a part of it where you will have to present it. Then there are some more technical aspects on how you will implement your project, and maybe this will also take, I would say, space of these 10 pages for you to present your proposal. So I would say that optimally you'll have like in between 7-8 pages in specific to your research. Just a clue, I don't know, back then the proposal could be presented, or the idea is that you download a Word template, and then when you upload your proposal it becomes a PDF, but it could be written either in two fonts, so in Times New Roman and in Arial, and then you have, I don't remember the size of the font, but obviously if you do it in Times, you have more space than if you have in Arial. But this is just a clue in case, because you will feel like you don't have space to fill in your all that you want to say. So some critical aspects, or not so critical, but that for me were more difficult back then. The maximum length, like I said, you only have 10 pages. The deliverables and the milestones. And when I talk about deliverables and milestones, I do not refer necessarily to to the typical deliverables and milestones that a project should have. What I mean is, somehow as a Marie Curie future fellow or as an applicant, you should present some non-official mandatory deliverables. For instance, I have never heard about a career management plan, and the host institution I had selected back then, so the University of Ferrara, suggested me, Luisa, as a postdoc that is going to develop an innovative project funded by the European Commission, there are some kinds of deliverables that you are supposed to develop. So a data management plan, for instance, I had never heard, or I have never done this during my PhD. So there are some, I would say, specificities that you are requested in the text that you should get aware of. Also the descriptors and the open data pilot. Just 2 slides on this. The descriptors, I don't know if they are still called this way, but for you to give you an idea, and also the reason why I presented myself in the beginning, and to talk to you a little bit about the importance of the multidisciplinary aspects of the proposal. So I graduated as an architect, had been working with engineers, and when I looked at the panels, the one that I thought that would fit better my proposal back then was this engineering. So information science and engineering, something very broad. And then we were asked to choose up to 5 descriptors. I wouldn't see them as keywords, but 5 main topics. And in our case, the project LO, Heritage Energy Living Lab on site, it had as a target the idea of testing in situ the thermal insulation of some biomaterials in an old building, an heritage building. So the first descriptor we chose was architecture, though we have nothing like smart buildings and smart cities on our project. Then the sustainable design. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but like we were looking for biomaterials, we selected this one. Okay, the building was an heritage building, so we selected cultural heritage. By the way, the city of Ferrara is practically all of the city is an heritage site recognized by UNESCO since the 80s, I guess. And then we have these diagnostic and implantable devices. Okay. It was strange for me in the end to have been suggested to integrate these, because in the beginning I did not think of that, but it was obvious that I wanted to monitor the performance of these thermal insulation materials. So in the end, it was obvious that we had to develop a new monitoring system, and that's why we integrated these here. And finally, as we had appointed a very strong dissemination character, we proposed as a descriptor the communication networks, media, whatever. And just to give you an idea, we have nothing to do with, this is not a proposal in marketing, okay? So, but it was quite broad, the aspects that we wanted to target, to reach. In terms of the open data pilot, I don't know if nowadays it is mandatory for you to have all your results and data collection in an open access, or somehow in a repository like the one of the University of Coimbra. But back then I had never heard about the Open Research Data Pilot, and I was asked to opt in and opt out. I didn't have any idea on what it meant. I decided to go through opt in. This was for Horizon 2020. I believe that for Horizon Europe, you are mostly likely to be just obliged to follow with this. And as you can see here, for instance, there is this data management plan, the one that I never heard about it before. So I wouldn't say that it is difficult or very difficult to write a proposal, but it is somehow different than writing a proposal for the FCT or a regular proposal for a PhD. I'll try to go faster because I believe that my time is running. So just 1 or 2 notes about the evaluation report. Back then, the threshold was 70, but okay, we were not kicked out if we had below 70. We scored 95.2, and I will try to show you a little bit on the evaluation, where we scored the best or better and where we scored not so well. So it has been said already that we were assessed or evaluated through 3 main criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. In terms of the excellence, it had to do with also with the novelty of our research and the inter and multidisciplinary aspects of your research. So it has been said, and I believe that in our case, it was also a strong proposal because of that. In terms of the quality and appropriateness of the training, when I looked at this, I have no idea what this meant, and this two-way transfer. What is meant here is, my opinion, is if you are going out, it is for some reason. So why did I move to Ferrara? Why did I decide to work with that professor? So I was going there to gain something that I still didn't have as an expertise. So I was going to get some training. But on the other way, by moving there, I was also giving them some of my knowledge or some of my networking. So there is the idea of this two-way transfer. So you are going to learn something and you can also give them something. So you're not just going there and, sorry for the expression, sucking the information. So you're going there, you're learning, and you're also giving them something. It has been said, so the supervision or the supervisor is also evaluated. And then in terms of the future career, so here I would suggest that in terms of impact, you should show yourself ambitious and somehow selling yourself. Though you might feel like you are just going to do a postdoc, you have to seem like you're, I'm not saying that you're going to the moon, but show yourself as somebody ambitious enough to be a reference researcher in the future. Another thing in terms of the writing and wording, back then I was not very familiarized with the differences between communicating and disseminating research. So one thing is more connected with the idea of disseminating the results. Normally you do this with your peers, right? So through you're going to conferences or you publish papers, and then communication actions might have to do with some other things, like you can explain to university students what you are doing. So at a different level, something complementary to what they are doing or what they are learning in their course of engineering, for instance. Or you can communicate with the society in general. So there is an event in the city and you are doing something, I don't know, in smart grids, and you take that opportunity to talk with to the mayor, and you said, oh, we would like to show our project. Or there might be many things that are not directly with your applied with the research itself. And then finally the implementation, and you will see that was what was not so well scored in our case. And it has got to do with the work plan and the way that you are structuring your tasks. And for instance, even the mobility programs, so the secondment, it is assessed if the timing that you choose along your, for instance, 2-year work, if it is the proper one. The idea that when are you moving or when are you going to the secondment, is this the right time during the lifetime or the timeline of your project? And I signed here the risk management. Once again, when I developed my PhD, I had never heard about the idea of developing a risk management plan. So going to the evaluation outputs, this is a print screen of the result we got. Okay, so I would like to sign out in terms of the excellence. So the first part, what was written here, that was the state of the art was clear and convincingly presented. Okay, the research methodology and the approach are sound. So this soundness has already been spoken here. So the way you approach and the way you present your idea is important. Then it was also a bonus or a plus here. The scientific basis of the proposal is innovative and it has a strong multidisciplinary nature. So the multidisciplinary or the interdisciplinary that was just spoken before about the 3 I's, it is effectively requested. Once again, the training aspect. So you're not supposed to be moving to do exactly what you are doing now. So you are going out to get some training, to learn new things, okay? And in this case, if the host organization has this capacity, it is not because it has the capacity that everybody should know. So the reviewer must know that the organization has this training capacity. Like I said before, the supervisor is also assessed somehow. And there is something also important, that is this capacity of the host institution to enhance your networking opportunities. Once again, you might bring them yours, but you are also gaining something from them. In terms of the impact, we have said, and this word has been spoken before, the ambitious strategy, okay, to enhance the future career prospects of the researchers. So you want to, what do you want, or what do you expect to be after the MarieCurie? Where do you see yourself, not in 5 years, but maybe in 2 or 3 years after getting this training? And also, okay, it was well scored, the dissemination strategy. But like I said, our project pointed also as a very strong dissemination strategy. As you can see, we also failed something. So the exploitation plan is not fully developed. I cannot even remember if it was clearly presented. So exploitation plan is thinking of the data, what are you getting, and what can be done after your project ends. So does the data you collect, does it die when the project ends, or it can be used in the future? Who can use it? Other researchers, the researchers in the field, the society. So this was not explored. And in terms of the implementation, finally, it was the criterion we scored the worst, okay? And maybe instead of pointing at the strengths, I can read you, or you can follow here, the weaknesses. So the risk associated with the selection of a building as a main case study is not adequately addressed. So the first thing is, and I said it before, the risk management plan. I thought there were no risks in my proposal, practically. I had written some, okay, but I for instance, I did not think about the ethics or any ethical program. I didn't think about it, okay, and somehow it came out that it was not enough. And also, when they talk about the weaknesses of the implementation, in fact, the Gantt chart, it is stated here that it is sufficiently detailed, but I can also tell you that it was not very well detailed. And somehow then it is shown here that they looked at it and they said, oh, the number of person months allocated to the work packages is not sufficiently detailed. It wasn't. So, but this is a risk because we didn't have space. That is something that you will have to deal with, the difficulty of the space. I'm about to finish, okay, my last 2 slides, just some tips. Though you are going to upload a Word document that becomes a PDF, and it is a black and white document, there are some ways to enhance to highlight your speech, I would say. You can use the underlined mode to highlight something. You can use bold words. You can use boxes and put your text inside the boxes. And you can also use images. Just make sure that you don't use all of these in the same page, otherwise the reviewer will not be able to differentiate what it is more important than and what is general information. But the way you communicate, so the writtenness of the document, of this 10-page document, is really important. And finally, the abstract, that, like I said, it will be something that will become public in the European Commission portal. We didn't do a traditional abstract like you do for a scientific paper, okay? We wrote a 4-paragraph abstract where we already presented I would say, the strong aspects of our proposal. So we somehow touched the state of the art. We pointed at the innovative aspects. We evidenced why we were the ones conducting that study, and so also the EU return. But it is here, but you can find it online. So we wrote the objective of the proposal, how the objective would be achieved, and why it was important to the work program. Back then, the work program was Horizon 2020. Thank you, and sorry if I exceeded my time. I already cut a lot of slides, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I am sure that it was very useful to see your firsthand experience and that everybody could learn more with these 5 minutes more. Okay, so if you can stop sharing your screen, thank you, Luisa. Now we will pass on to the next part of the program, which is our last presentation about the MarieCurie at UC initiative. And so we had here first the national contact point telling us about the eligibility criteria, then reviewers' view on what is important to include in your presentation, and Luisa has told us all about how she wrote her proposal, what was important to pay attention to. If you are at the point of writing your proposal right now, then we want to give you some help as well and some food for thought. So first, the initiative of MarieCurie at UC was born because we want you. We want you as a postdoctoral fellow in Coimbra, and it is more and more recognized that the internationalization and the mobility of researchers really makes the research quality much higher. And so that is why the University of Coimbra also wants to really engage you in coming or going to different universities and your best host institution. So once you know that we want you, what now? If you are looking for your place at the University of Coimbra, look at the R&D units of the UC. These are the research centers or the research and development units. They span across many fields. For example, you have arts and humanities. You have the section on social sciences. You have exact sciences, natural sciences, health sciences. This is a very big bunch of research centers, and engineering and technology sciences. So just go on to the UC website, find your suitable topic of research, check out the R&D units, and then drop them an email. We are working with the science managers of each of these units, and they will be able to answer you and accommodate you as a prospective fellow. The initiative of MarieCurie at UC has 3 aims. So this was born at the Institute of Interdisciplinary Research within the strategic areas of the University of Research. They are interdisciplinary by nature, and they follow closely the clusters of Horizon Europe. So our aim is to increase the number of MarieCurie fellows by talking to the R&D units and showing what is the potential for them in having more candidates. We want to increase the attractiveness of these research centers to receive more candidates, and so how is it possible to make them more attractive as the host institution? And we want to increase the visibility of any fellows that come to the University of Coimbra and give them a dedicated place to showcase their research. How do we plan to do it? So creating a dissemination package and attractiveness package for the research centers such that they can communicate more easily. They have templates to share on their social networks and emails, and they have ready a list of services that the fellows will likely be able to use and to access. We want to support the R&D units preparing the proposals by, for example, giving advice on the review of implementation and the impact sections of the proposals, because as we have seen with Louisa's example, these are quite important parts, and sometimes as a junior researcher, it is difficult to think of all the implementation and impact aspects that you can really exploit in your proposal. So we have a dedicated webpage please go check the MarieCurie webpage at the University of Coimbra. We usually have the latest news in there. Whenever the program is going to be launched, we will also have more information there. And we are promoting training and information events. This is one of them, and some of the other ones are more targeted to different audiences as well. So we have workshops for the science managers. The science managers of each of these research units, that are the ones that you are going to check in order to see which one fits best your research, is being capacitated in order to receive you, and first to know who you are and to be able to attract applicants. Then we are going to together think about the best way of preparing successful applications and how to best help you reviewing all your application, reading through, see if every evaluation criteria is really met, and how to improve your application. Because as you see, it is not only the excellence that is very important in order for you to be successful in your application, but also the implementation and impact have a big chunk of importance here. And it is really key that everything is very well articulated in your application, and that you can talk to your supervisor, to the people in your research unit, the upcoming research unit that have already worked in there, and to the science managers. Okay, so we just want to give you some little tips in case you have already looked at the R&D units and you are now in the phase of choosing your supervisor. So what we advise you to do is to take your time to select someone that really fulfills your research ideals, that has the experience, that can take your career to the next level, and that really can be used to tackle the problem and the idea that you are going to work on in your fellowship. Then please pay attention to the research center facilities, if they have the infrastructure that you are really looking for and that you need in implementing your proposal. So for example, some of you will only need a desk and an email account to work, but some not. And so just as Mete also told us, if you need a secondment to fulfill any weakness that your host institution will have, please think thoroughly about that and make your proposal as strong as possible. Pay attention to the time that you allow for your supervisor to read your proposal, because they will have great tips and a completely different overview over your research topics. So do it in a cooperative way. And if you are still looking for a supervisor, because perhaps it is very clear who the person should be, maybe it is the only person that does this work at the University of Coimbra, or you may have to go through some steps until you choose your supervisor. Ask help from peers, ask help from the science managers, and let's see if the fit can be the best possible. What can you expect from the supervisor? So you can expect help in making your proposal cohesive and whole. You can expect them to tell you what you should be looking for and waiting when you come to the University of Coimbra. So what is this giving you? They should be able to tell you what are the opportunities for your career, for the training, and this is a two-way transfer of knowledge. So just the same way that you are going to give the University of Coimbra your expertise, you are also going to benefit from the research infrastructure and ecosystem here. And also they must be able to really be enthusiastic about the research that they do, to foster your curiosity and creativity towards the topics that you research and develop. So just a very little note on why would Coimbra be a great place to have your MarieCurie fellowship. So first we want to let you know that the quality of life is quite high as in terms of the standards across the world, and this has to do with many variables, but for example, when you look at the salary that you are going to earn as a Marie Curie fellow, and if you compare the salaries that you would earn in a different European country with the ones that you are going to earn in Portugal, then you may think that it is not so very competitive as in other countries because of the correction factor and because we are huge taxpayers. But then if you compare it to the cost of living is actually quite low, and in Coimbra more than, for example, in Lisbon. It is not all the same across Portugal, so keep that in mind when you look at the numbers. We also want to tell you that, of course, everybody knows that Coimbra is a UNESCO World Heritage, that university is part of it with 730 years of history, but also that the culture part of the city is going to be even more fleshed up now, that we have a lot of nature and beautiful landscapes around, and that there are many options for people that are just coming and arriving at the country in Coimbra. Now, if Coimbra is a good option, then what is the University of Coimbra and what is its part in your fellowship and in welcoming you? So Coimbra is quite committed in terms of sustainability and equality and diversity. So as you have heard with David's presentation, you will need to tick a box saying whether your host institution has a gender equality plan or not. Coimbra already has one. This will really not be a problem. You can access it from now on and see actually what is in the plan. This also gives you a great opportunity to try out different sports, for example, in our River Mondego, or to learn Portuguese. And we want also to tell you that the university is doing a lot of tests, a massive amount of tests to all the collaborators and students right now in terms of the pandemic, and the accessibility to every place is being quite restricted and followed a lot of the regulations. So everything is kept as safe as possible. When you are preparing your proposal, there is also a couple of things that we want you to know, especially about the systems that are here to help you. Put all the machinery of having a fellow coming to Coimbra. And so first, you will already at the portal, just as Luisa showed you, have the support of DAPI, the Research Support and Promotion Unit. They will take you until the part of the grant agreement. Then you can also have the help of the International Relations Unit for your arrival and integration and knowing a lot of the other conditions that you need in order to come to Coimbra. And the fellowship implementation will be followed by a manager at the project management unit. There are also many opportunities at the Technology Transfer Office, if this is applicable for you, the UC Business, and you can check out everything about intellectual property, patents, and everything that is related to innovation is very well covered. The University of Coimbra is also very close to an incubator, IPN, close to here, which is one of the best European incubators, so pay attention to that in case it is important for your proposal. And there are a very varied number of social services that you can benefit from when you come to the University of Coimbra. All right, so for the ones that are part of the research units and that are listening now, if you want to be a supervisor or if you want to receive the interests of some applicants, please talk to the science manager of your research center. Let them know that you are interested, because until 19th of May, our team will be gathering all the expressions of interest, and then we will be spreading the word across all the platforms that we have access to. That's it. We want you to keep updated on our webpage. There is a lot of resources. The upcoming ones will be the most important now for 2021 and for the call that is coming. So just keep your bookmark in there and go there as often as you want. And this is part of a different initiative, which is Destinations. And every month we have one event of the Destinations. Next one will be on the 21st of June. If you are interested, it will be in Portuguese about the research infrastructures at Horizon Europe and the new founding opportunities for that. We are at the Institute of Interdisciplinary Research in Polo 2, so you are very welcome to drop us an email, and I hope that this session has been of interest to you. Now we are a little bit behind schedule, but we have time for questions. So let's look at some of the questions that you have already put in here, but we can go ahead and ask some of the questions to our speakers right now. If someone wants to go ahead first, although we are more than 80, I think that we can open at least one mic and have some questions going forth right now. Is there any question that was not answered by David Marçal already?
There's a question regarding our internal review deadline. It's not really an internal review, it's more that the centers, the research units need to know as soon as possible who's interested in coming into their units. And so to provide adequate support for their applications, we recommended that all units receive declarations of interest until the 15th of July and then work with the applicants throughout the summer. If you come later, there's really not a lot of time to work on all these issues that all of our speakers spoke about, how to really tailor the transfer of knowledge, the impact, the adequacy of the institution. So as soon as you find your supervisor and or research unit, you need to start working. So that's why we shared this deadline. It's up to the R&D units, of course, to decide that the deadline's later or sooner. So you should check their websites, follow their publications, and see what they propose.
Okay, yeah, I am catching up with the questions now. Exactly, this was not an internal deadline, but was the time of which the workshops are given to the science managers, so that they are in 2 months in advance ready to give you feedback. But it's not an internal review. Each of the research units will have their own. Clara, do you want to ask some of the questions that
Yes.
we have already received?
Yes, so we had this first workshop a couple of weeks ago, and there were some questions from our science managers, and I don't think we came to a perfect conclusion of what was the right answer, so I'll just repose them. The first one is how experienced or productive a supervisor needs to be. Are there criteria imposed on the supervisor in addition to the actual researcher, or are there expectations regarding the CV of the supervisor? I don't know if you want to address, or should I keep on going?
Maybe we do each one. Yes, David, please.
Oh, I think probably Matt, as an evaluator, could have a better perspective on that.
Yeah, I would say it's not always about the best supervisor worldwide, it's about the perfect match. That's why you also need to analyze the weak and the strong points of the supervisor and the host organization. Sorry for saying host institution, host organization, and the secondments and the PI, because there are projects assigned to supervisors that are relatively young team leaders, but they should be team leader. So acknowledged as a team leader within the university, because they need to have the capacity to supervise you. But it doesn't have to be a Nobel Prize winner or a very big shot. It's about the perfect match. And that is related to proposed research.
Mette, I think the disagreement was a little bit around how maybe ERC laboratories may be good places to have, and ERCs are the top. So is it
Yes.
also for other people, or is it just for ERC labs, or can you speak about that?
Yeah, so then I will be honest. So what we see on the backside is that when it comes to Marie Curie fellows, when they have had a Marie Curie fellowship, they have a higher likelihood of getting an ERC. That's also confirmed by the European Research Council, that you are doubling your chances if you have a Marie Curie fellow to get in the end an ERC proposal. And then on the other side, when it comes to the supervisors, we see that if they are supervising Marie Curie fellows or they have a doctoral network, they are increasing the likelihood of getting an ERC. Yeah, if there's an ERC present, then you might also increase the likelihood of getting in Marie Curie. But it's not black and white. And that's something you need to realize, is that currently people are not realizing what's ongoing. And the panels, they're really looking at why are you applying for an Marie Curie fellowship when it comes to the boosting your career and doing research and positioning yourself. It's really about positioning yourself, getting you in a position where you can take the lead in your research field in the future. And that's why it's so important to look at why do you need it if you have a 5 or 10 years goal, as Louisa was saying. That's very, very important. Yeah. So it's not black and white, but of course there is a higher likelihood if there is an ERC grant at the department. And then there's something else. When it comes to ERC, so we are referring to the European Research Council. The European Research Council is consisting of panels of professors. And they all have an academic career. There are some that are at a research institute, but most of them are academics. So ERC is driven by academics for academics. Marie Curie, not. There are consultants there. There are academics, people from research institutes, also industry present in the panels. So I have not been an evaluator, but I've been lined up. I was on the short list, but my colleague has been evaluator for Marie Curie, and she's not an academic, but we are consultants and trainers. But we know what to look for in proposals.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There's the other question that we heard is, are there benefits to having a co-supervisor? So we know, or at least last year, we told our candidates that you can only really have one host institution. That's very clear. But are there benefits of having a co-supervisor in your application from another entity, from the same entity? That's the question.
Then I would say it's opening up. Secondment is already indicating there are co-supervisors. And that's why you need to look at what are the strong points of the PI, the strong points of the university and of the supervisor, and then see where do you need some elements coming from somewhere else, either a co-supervisor within the same university, within the same country, or another country. But secondments are really there to enhance the likelihood that you get an interdisciplinary or cross-disciplinary training, because that's future. That's what we see. It's not monodisciplinarity. It's crossing the boundaries of disciplines. but you have to make the analysis and make that also with your supervisor and be honest to each other. And if there's a weak point, then pinpoint to it and tell that's why we have a secondment either within the project duration or as an add-on afterwards. If it's an add-on afterwards, then you also need to think through what you're going to do, because most likely there you are bringing then the results to another research field or to another sectoral organization.
Just to clarify, does that mean yes to co-supervisor or no? So we understand the benefit of secondment. Does that mean we add a second supervisor in the place where the secondment takes place? Maybe I didn't fully.
It depends upon when the secondment is done. If it is
Okay.
during the project, you have a co-supervisor, because at the moment when you are at the other entity, then the supervisor has no power at all.
Okay.
That's the whole problem, and also not the knowledge. So then you're introducing co-supervisor, and then you need to think through what do you need within the university. If it is required for carrying out the research and boosting your career, because this is all about boosting your career, to position you that you can become a team leader. That's what this is all about, becoming an independent researcher and a team leader. And if then the supervisor has not all the knowledge, yeah, then there should not be an inhibition for co-supervisor. Unless I'm wrong, David, maybe you can.
No, I think you're far more experienced in these matters than I am, so I'm also learning with you.
Yeah, and then I have to say something. I argue from the scientific point of view. So, and this is what I see what panel members are doing. They're ticking off the list, as Louisa was showing by going through the evaluation summary report, and they're ticking off the strong and the weak points. But you need to argue from the career perspective and the science. And then this is really about selecting something that can give you a unique position and increase the value of you as a person. And that's why you sometimes see that candidates who said, I have a weak CV, I have a good idea, but a weak CV, and I left the research and went in and out, are still getting a Marie Curie, because the panel sees that the Marie Curie fellowship can change everything in the life of that specific applicant. And that's what you need to sell. And that's also what Louisa is referring to. You need to sell yourself.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And our last question, I think it was on the more technical aspects, which is, can we expect to have templates for the MarieCurie? And when can we expect them?
Well, I think it will be very close to the opening of the call because probably Horizon Europe will be approved very close to the opening of the call. So I don't know the exact date, but for sure when the call is open, of course, but probably it will be a few days before.
So last chance for, okay, we have another question just coming in. And I will read it out loud. Is it beneficial to involve industry in MarieCurie postdoctoral fellowship proposals?
Yes, it is, as it is one of the goals of the Marie Curie actions, the mobility between the academic and non-academic sector. Although if you apply with a non-academic institution as your host institution, in general, most successful proposals are from academic sector, although the non-academic sector can be involved somehow in a secondment or in after, in the placement in the industry in the end.
Exactly. Thank you. And what is the prospective timeline for the results coming out of this 2021 call?
Well, at the moment, I don't have the answer. It is sure several months, but I can get back to you if you send me that question by email. I'll try to find out.
Okay, so we ask Ana Martins to send us it by email, and then you can get the answer as well. And if there are no further questions at the moment, I think that a lot of them were already answered. Thank you so much, David. Then I would like to say a big thank you for all of you joining us today, and especially a huge thank you to David Marçal for being present, to Mete for telling us about her point of view, and for Luisa for sharing her experience with us. And we hope that if you have any questions, you come to us, and the presentations will be sent to you within a few days. Thank you so much.
Boa tarde, good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.